Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the 9th of the month and a new, I guess, well, am I going to call it a series? Well, certainly I will be here on the 9th of every month sharing something about the Secret Not Secret Kit Club, my kits, what I've got done. It could be some layout shares, talking about the challenges at the party and showing you what I get done with the challenges. But basically, Christy and a couple of other of my friends prepared a lovely thumbnail, and then we sort of had the idea that since we prepared this lovely thumbnail for videos, wouldn't it be fun to just sort of have YouTube filled with that lovely thumbnail, and on a regular basis pop on here and share with you some of the stuff that we're doing with our kits. Because I know that I certainly get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions about the parties, about how the kits are structured, about the various challenges. So I thought it would be fun to sort of put a day aside and do that. This is very unstructured. It's not a YouTube hop. It's not a structured collaboration. Basically, all we've done is those of us that get kits have said, okay, on the 9th of the month, we're going to put a video up. We are going to share on Instagram for those that don't have a YouTube channel, or on Facebook, or just in the group. But we are going to make the 9th of the month a day to share what we get done with our kits, or to share some of the things about our kits. So I thought for the first one and for today's edition that I would come on and do a little bit of an album share, because this is a bit of a special album. I started this in January at our Secret Not Secret Kit Club party in January. The parties run from Friday to Sunday. But on the Thursday night, there's always a lovely warm-up channel. And in January's party, the warm-up channel was time for change and change over time. And the Thursday night one was Christina giving us a challenge of something that changed in our lives sort of over time, like the first day of school and the last day of school in a given year, a change in our daily routine, so over a day, change in responsibilities in our job. Anyway, at that point, I sort of jokingly put as a comment that I could pretty much do an album about change now that I've reached 61. And I have had a few very specific and very different career changes. So I put that jokingly there, and then as the challenges were going on the weekend and over the next few months, it actually became an album, and it is an album, and pretty much every layout in here is based on a Secret Not Secret Kit Club challenge, and every layout in here uses a kit. So I thought I would give you a little bit of an insight into the album I'm doing of all the changes in my career over the years. Now, I have not scrapbooked this chronologically. I store chronologically, and this is not the beginning of the album. It starts in 1988, where I started working, I guess, in about 1978, maybe even 77, because I did a lot of my university while I was working full-time. So this was the very first album chronologically that I have in here, but this is from an April, Christie's Uniquely You challenge from April. And I used, in this one, I used my kit that was based on Auburn Lane. I love Auburn Lane. I did some stamping here on the craft background to give it a little bit of definition. I think you can do some outlining. You can do inking to sort of give a little bit of separation and a little bit of depth. And in this particular case, I just chose to do a little bit of inking. And I see here I have a few die cuts also from Paige Evans. Paige Evans or Vicki Boutin, I'm not quite sure which. And as always, a few little bits and pieces that are always on those bowls that are on my desk. So this was my very first trip to Australia, down under in 1988. I was in the aircraft industry at that time, and that's probably the longest and the largest and the most official of my careers. This was about a 2 or 3 week trip at the time, and it was an air show that I was representing Bombardier at the time. So there you go. So we continue on from there, and here I'm in 1989, and this was one of the largest contracts that we had ever signed at this point, with one of my favorite customers of all times, Spain. And this is the two of us. This was my counterpart from the Spanish Air Force and myself, signing something like 350 pages, page after page after page. We initialed every single page, and then you signed the contract at the end, which is how contracts were done in those days. And this is a mini kit that I had. Every once in a while I get 2 mini kits as opposed to a large kit. This was a mini kit, and a lot of this is based on, I think it is close to my heart, and I think it was the Boutique collection. And I have here some One Canoe 2 chipboard pieces that are there as well, and some Altenew little puppy stickers. And you'll start seeing these lovely little freckled fawn cameras appear. I love these, and at one point I asked Christina for an add-on of, there are 2 sizes of a full package of each of these little puppy stickers. So there we go. That is that. Then this is the aircraft. This is circa 1991. This was a challenge, obviously, about a large photo. I think it might have been one of Angela Bartlett's challenges. Actually it was a Grab 5. It was a Grab 5 that had a large photo, and I remember it also had printing or a title or something on the photo. So this was definitely a Grab 5 challenge. This is the aircraft that I worked on for the majority of my career, the Water Bomber. It's an airplane that puts out forest fires, and I worked on this airplane. I guess I was the contracts director and program director from round about this time, somewhere in 1988, early 89, through until about 1995. So there we go. That was another one of our challenges. We have another challenge here. This is using also the mini kit that I used on the previous challenge, but this, I don't remember this collection, but it was so beautiful. I love this. I have this lovely doily. This says This Day in Belgrade in 1991. So this documents some negotiations that I was doing there. These are some colleagues that I traveled with, some of the local people that worked for us. This is using one of my favorite go-to designs, the 1/3, 2/3, where I have the photos that cross over that 1/3, 2/3 line, and then I have some paper layers that go along on a little bit more of a horizontal angle, and you see here's that little camera. Here I have, so this is fairly recent because I have the Happy Life thickers on here. So I don't remember what this challenge was, but it was definitely a challenge from the Secret Not Secret Kit Club party, as is this one. And this one, I do recall the challenge was in one of my kits. We have such a fun community, and the way Christina puts our kits together is just awesome. So in one of the mini kits, she sent me this paper for the other side of the paper, and she said, I recognize this with the pineapples has absolutely nothing to do with your kit, but I challenge you to use it anyway. So I did. So I think this might have been the only reason that I used this. That I don't know if this was a very specific challenge to the party or if it was just to be using this paper with this part of the kit. And this was maybe a year or two later than this was in Belgrade, because this was ex-Yugoslavia, and then the war or the troubles, or I don't really know what you call them, of the ex-Yugoslavia happened. Croatia became a republic, and we in the end negotiated and sold to Croatia as opposed to ex-Yugoslavia. And this was the signing of that contract. Then in the same year, I was doing a lot of traveling. My customers were mainly European, mainly in the Mediterranean region. So there, in particular, in this year, I think it was 1993, I went to Europe 23 times. I used to have, and that I haven't documented yet. I do have to document that. I'm sure there's going to be a challenge that's going to make me document that. Christina and Christy and Sarah in particular keep sending me on these rabbit trails and rabbit holes that result in all sorts of fun projects. So I will have to document that particular year and just the part of traveling, because I used to have always at the ready a suitcase packed for 3 days, 1 week, and 2 weeks, so that I was always at the ready to leave. This is simply documenting one of the hotels that I stayed at in Rome. It was a lovely little hotel, walking distance everywhere, and in particular the beautiful flowers that they used to give us. So I was using here this gorgeous Vicki Boutin paper and these large die cuts. See, I finally found a way to get some of these large die cuts there, and these fun little Amy Tangerine bows. Love those bows. Wish I had a lot more of those bows, but I'm on a spending freeze, so there you go. This was the same trip in Italy, and it was a dinner with some of my colleagues and our customers. And again, this was definitely a challenge. I'm using here my Vicki Boutin. Now, I get confused between the Kaleidoscope and the Field Notes. I think this must have been Field Notes. And this was another Christie challenge. This was definitely a Christie challenge because this bird is on here because of something Christie made me do. She makes me do a lot of wonderful things. So this is definitely a Christie challenge. This one over here is in Spain, and it's called Protocol, and this is just me giving a speech after, I guess, one of our negotiations, and this is probably a dinner after a signature. And I put here probably the customer with the most protocol, the most ceremonies, and where I gave the most speeches. Spain became a second home, and some of these people became a second family to me. So this was also lovely, and this is somewhere around, I think, 1993 or 1994 as well. I'm sure I got this bicycle on there for a challenge. I don't really know why it's on there otherwise. Again, some of the lovely Vicki Boutin paper. And this is definitely one of my go-to designs, where I do a 1/3 at the top, 2/3 at the bottom, and then a couple of strips in the middle of that. There we go. And then this one here, this is definitely a challenge. That was a stamping challenge of a background from Sarah Scraps, I'm sure. This is in 1995. This was some bittersweet moments. These are some of my favorite people from Italy and my Italian customers at that point. I was at this time taking a sabbatical, and deciding to reevaluate what I was going to do. I think the constant traveling over about a 10-year period, this was a 24/7 job for sure, was taking a little bit of a toll, and I needed to do some thinking. And as you'll see a little bit further on, I never did go back, but I have still a lot more to document about that sabbatical and these people. So we had just a lovely little dinner where we all cooked together. This was in my home at that time. It was just let's get together. And this is a companion page to it, where at this point I call it a new life. These lovely people. This is part of the dinner that we had. I did a lot of fussy cutting here. From, I can't recall whether this was Craft Market. This is not Auburn Lane, but this was one of my favorite collections from a couple of years prior. I think it might be Craft Market. I fussy cut these flowers out. I think this must be some Paige Evans. I've got a lot of bits from my bowl here. Some little wood buttons from Chamel. And again, sort of that general 2 4x6 photos, and then this little photo here just on the side. This was the same evening, celebrating with these lovely friends of mine from Italy, and some of my local colleagues as well. This is then, oh, and here is Sophie coming to visit us. There we go. And this is a little bit later, about 6 months later. I think this was in May of 1995. This is in October when I officially decided that I was not going to go back, off to new discoveries and a fond farewell. This was a little party that was thrown for me by my colleagues. A lot of little celebrations. This is definitely using a kit. And for sure it was one of the Escape the Ordinary, one of the challenges. It may have been probably along the lines of Change Again, but it was definitely a challenge. And then one of the things I did after that is go back to university in nutrition, and I wrote a cookbook. This is some beautiful Vicki Boutin paper. It was definitely for a challenge, because I remember actually writing this is going to go into my Time for Change album. So Vicki Boutin, a lot of layering on this one. Moments there was probably something about maybe a larger title in the challenge. And what I love about these parties and the challenges is they get us thinking, and they send us, maybe me on a little bit of a rabbit trail more than others, but it gets me to get some of those stories documented that need to be documented, but that I don't think about, that are a little bit older, and they give me a way and a different way of documenting them. So this was me signing at my book launch. This again, and this I'm going back to my Close to My Heart mini kit, based on the Close to My Heart mini kit. Then this was after I did the nutrition and the book. I went on to study naturopathy and become a naturopath, and this was me actually teaching. And again, I'm using here this beautiful Vicki Boutin. This is Field Notes, I'm pretty sure. This is Field Notes, and this here is a little bit of Paige Evans, because it matched so beautifully, and doing a lot of florals because I was teaching in a garden, so I got a lot of florals here. Some white, oh, I have this little kitty cat here, so I can only use one hand. Little Sophie. Again, the happy life alphas. I got a couple of these florals up on some pop dots. So basically it's really just the photo, these two little, because these were probably scraps that were on my desk that would frame and bring your eye right through the photo, and then framing all of this with just some lovely florals. A very, very simple layout, but I think it's quite dramatic and gives a just, I love the effect that those beautiful florals, and it's a way to use all of those bigs, because don't you find that some of the die cuts are getting a little bit big? So here's a way that I found to use them, and I use some of the smaller ones as well. So the bigger ones are flat to the page, and some of the smaller ones, and this lovely little butterfly, are pop dotted. And then this is not the same year as the previous one, but it's a double pager that I did, and this again is using Vicki Boutin, and I don't know, but I think I used a sketch for this. I did use a sketch. I don't know whether it was one of the challenge sketches. I don't think so, or what challenge this particularly was, but I do know I used a sketch. It's a double pager. I have one, and I kind of love that this is all the same day, but I love this idea of overlapping the photos here. This is kind of fun, because there was a lot on these photos that I probably would not have scrapbooked as just one photo, because there was a lot of space on there that didn't need to be there, of uninteresting parts on the photo, but I didn't really want to crop them down. So this fun way of overlapping them, I thought was a lovely, lovely idea. Big title here. This is from Vicki Boutin for sure, as is, these are thickers that came in. This now I think I'm into Kaleidoscope. Correct me somebody if I'm wrong, but I think this was actually done with Kaleidoscope. And what I would do, and I would participate in those years, and probably did for 4 or 5 years, was sort of a big celebration in a large garden. It was organic gardening, making your own cosmetics, preparing herbal remedies, and that kind of thing. And I used to participate every year with a group of friends, and we would have a few products. I would do some teaching for that little while, and that's as far as it got. So this is probably early 2000s. So I still have quite a bit before. I have about 10 years before the beginning of this album, which is in 1988, so about 1978, and up until now. So I have about 10 years at the beginning, 10 years at the end, quite a bit in the middle. But you see, these are all pages that I got done for challenges, all using my awesome kits. Many of you had asked for some album flip-throughs of some of the stuff that I got done during those parties. So there you have it. So go look. There aren't any links below, but just go on YouTube, look for the thumbnail that you saw with this video. Pop on over to Instagram. A lot of my friends, I know Amber will be posting on Instagram, Dragonfly, Sharon Barrickman will be on Instagram, Susan Ellie I think will also be, and I'm sure I'm missing other people. So we will have a lot of sharing going on today and the 9th of every month. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, if you would like me to go into more detail on any of these layouts, please don't hesitate. And in the meantime, Sophie and I say bye and have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.